Yeah. Oh, really?
We'll see.
Yeah, she loves it. She's a sophomore. She's
There's more there coming.
I mean, her arms are just black and blue. It's just it's awesome. I would love to. Yeah, connect you. Yes. I'll make that happen.
It's a really great experience. It was like the best part.
Under the dock cam? Were you at TAC?
It's digital.
Oh, okay. I would love to have her come see you and talk to you.
I think she knows to put it on the screen. However,
Yeah.
so I have to.
She plays defense, but right now in high school she's playing mid, and she's scored like 6.
There's nothing queued up right now.
I'd like to call the regular city council meeting for Tuesday, May 16th, 2023 to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Welcome, everyone. First item up is our agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
No, sir.
Seeing none, I'll move the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. First item up are presentations, proclamations, and acknowledgements. First one's up tonight is presentation from the Rosemount Area Arts Council, commonly known as RAC. Mr. Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. On behalf of the Park and Rec Department and the city, I'm here. I want to welcome the Rosemount Area Arts Council representatives. As you all know, last council meeting, we approved their service agreement for 2023. And as we do every year, the Arts Council provides an update to give kind of a year-long snapshot of what they've done and kind of where they're going. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Keith Reed. Thank you. Yep, you bet.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Keith Reed, as Dan stated. I'm the current chair of the Rosemount Area Arts Council, and while I'm talking, I'm going to ask my vice chair, Tony Sasso, to come up and distribute some things to each one of you. First off, I'd like to welcome the new members to the City Council and welcome Mayor Weisensell. Welcome. And I wonder if you could clear up some rumors that we've had that the mayor's chair is more comfortable than the others. Is that correct?
It still breaks down every once in a while.
And so does the mayor.
And so does the mayor.
Tough crowd already.
Sheesh. That's good. This is the 15th anniversary of Rosemount Area Arts Council, approximately. And we are continuing to grow and to reach out to include arts-related activities and displays every year. As you know, the Rosemount Area Arts Council is a completely volunteer organization. And I'm very proud to say that at our last board meeting, they voted to increase my salary to $160,000. We currently have 238 paid members. Beginning of last year, we had 110. So we're really growing. We're growing fast. I would like you to please reference the annual report that I handed out. I'm not going to go through these things because they're pretty self-explanatory. They do show an upward trend in almost all of our activities, particularly since COVID. And one activity that shows major increases are drama presentations. In 2022, between the Front Porch Players and the Second Act Players, which is our senior theater group, and our Art Blast shows, we presented 13 plays, showing a steady rise from our last pre-COVID season in 2019. Speaking of drama, I would like to call your attention to the cards we handed out describing our major project for this fall, Free Air, which is a dramatization of a Sinclair Lewis novel and a 1921 movie, the first movie filmed in Minnesota, according to the Minnesota Historical Society, which was filmed partially in Rosemount. This is a major undertaking for us. It's our first foray into a multimedia, including live period music, vocals, dancing, slide presentation of 70 slides that were donated by the original film's producers family, and a live stage play written by John Locke. This production will definitely put Rosemount on the map. Another thing that we're exploring now is how we can help make the Steeple Center more accessible to the hard of hearing. We have a committee working with an organization which will make recommendations for helping this segment of the population able to enjoy the facility even more. And I'd like you to please look over the activities and our volunteer efforts. Just as a side note, since January 1st, 2023, we have had 57 different individuals donate 3,477 volunteer hours. At this point last year, we were at 2,759 hours, so that's a 20% increase in just this year so far. And I'm going to let you get to your business because thank you for your support. We're going to keep working to provide the citizens of the South Metro, particularly Rosemount citizens, with the highest quality arts activities. Are there any questions anyone has for me?
I did have one. I noticed in the newspaper a call, maybe, is that the right term, for people to be in the play?
Absolutely. We currently have a casting call out. It's all over the Twin Cities, actually, with a couple of websites that cover the whole area. And it was a nice article that they put in the paper. I was very pleased with that. But we're looking for actors for the play. In addition, we're looking for technical help. Try and get some people, I agree. Right. Try and get some people involved with drama that have never been involved before. That's the whole purpose of RAC, is to get more and more people involved who haven't been. You know, we're not looking for professional actors here. This is all volunteer, and, you know, I just hope that we can pull this one off, because this is going to be a big presentation. Guys, take a look at the dates on there, pick a date. We're already selling tickets for it, so.
Any questions from any of the councils? Thank you very much. Look forward to, I think, what will be an exceptional event here in our community.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That completes item 3A. Next item up is the proclamation for the National Public Works Week. Mr. Egger.
Thank you, Mayor Weisensell. Good evening, council members. Just in your packet, we do have tonight for your consideration and hopeful adoption, a proclamation recognizing National Public Works Week in the city of Rosemount for next week, May 21st through 27th. This is an event that was started back in 1960 by the American Public Works Association to call attention to the great things that Public Works does to make everyday life a routine, normal kind of experience. And in Rosemount, it's no exception. I just want to really highlight that there's 28 people in Public Works Department currently, and they do a ton of different, unique things each and every day to keep things moving around the city. Things such as keeping the streets clean, of course, sweeping those up in the springtime, keeping our surface water clean with inspections and monitoring and enforcing stormwater protection regulations, managing construction projects, overseeing development review and design to ensure that those are coming into the city's expectations for our infrastructure, patching streets, plowing snow. I don't think I need to remind anybody how critical and time-consuming that is, and those staff that participate in that spend an awful lot of time away from their families to help make that possible. We can't schedule snowfalls, you know, so they've got to be out there when it's happening. These staff operate our utility systems to make sure that we have clean drinking water coming into each and every home and that it turns on when you're getting ready in the morning for your day. Likewise with flushing wastewater and ensuring that gets to its destination to be treated. working with residents, answering phone calls and messages and clarifying things and explaining why we do what we do. There's just so much to it, and these folks do a tireless effort, mostly behind the scenes. I think it's Public Works is kind of one of those industries that you don't really realize it's there unless something breaks or doesn't go right. So full credit to our team. I'm very proud to be the leader of that team, and they've been doing great work all along. So Proclamation is to recognize them and for not only tonight, but all through next week. So I'll turn it back to you, Mayor, and can carry on from there.
Thank you. And as I understand it, we have about 27 people that are listed here.
We do. We currently have a vacancy. Sorry, I didn't clarify that.
Okay.
So we're looking to fill it.
Always looking for some more.
Yep.
So with that, I'll go ahead with the proclamation here. Starting National Public Works Week, May 21st to the 27th, 2023. Whereas Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, emergency management, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Rosemount. And whereas Public Works, infrastructure, facilities, and services provided to our community of over 27,000 residents and hundreds of businesses are an integral part of everyday life. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public work professionals who are federally mandated first responders and the engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government, and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our city's transportation, water supply, water treatment, solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas in this case it says 28, so we're trying to fill the one, of our Public Works Department shows each day of their dedication to sustaining and improving the health, safety, well-being, and high quality of life of the people of Rosemount. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Rosemount to gain knowledge and maintain ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works, first responders, and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2023 marks the 63rd Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now and therefore be it resolved, I, Jeffrey D. Weisensell, Mayor of Rosemount, do hereby designate the week, May 21st through 27, 2023, as National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Dated the 16th day of May, Mayor Jeffrey D. Weisensell. And with that, we'll sign off on this, and it is National Public Service Week.
Thank you very much.
I'm also going to take, as that completes the signed public announcements, I do have one that I'm adding in. I received this in some organizations, and people in the community are receiving a notice for Taps Across Rosemount. This is an event being asked as a community called Taps Across Rosemount for Memorial Day at 3 p.m. anywhere and everywhere in the city of Rosemount. This is a voluntary community event. It is being supported and pushed by Joel Walsh, an active volunteer over the years, as well as a past council member. And simply to use the opportunity at 3 o'clock to play taps. You can use your voice, musical instrument, or even your cell phone to play taps. Play at home, public spaces such as City Hall, Veterans Memorial, or City Hall, city parks, National Guard armories, and 4 cemeteries. According to the handout here, this action of playing taps takes about 1 minute. We certainly can spend that amount of time to honor our veterans after a long weekend. earlier on that day, I believe it is at, I want to say 10 o'clock, or is it 11? Because I'm double checking here. We will be having a community event, yes, at 11 o'clock in Central Park. So this is later in the day, 3 o'clock, and feel free to participate. I'm just sharing that out, so thank you. With that, that completes our item 3 presentations. We'll open up number 4 for public comment. Anyone wishing to come before council and speak on subjects that are not part of the meeting agenda may do so. When you come forward, please state your name, your address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. With that, the podium is open. Anyone wishing to come forward may do so at this time. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Florence Omogo. I live in 4292 144th Street, Rosemount, Minnesota. I just had a request if I could be allowed to split part of my property to sell to my neighbor, because I don't need the whole piece of land. So my agent told me to come and request the council if I could be allowed to split part of the property.
I guess I'm not quite sure what I'm.
Yeah, I think if we could, maybe if Mr. Nemchek would jump out and we'll get you a business card in the lobby, and then staff would be happy to help facilitate however that might shake out.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Fast, responsive government, right there.
There it is.
Thank you, Mr. Logan. Mr. Martin.
Mr. Logan.
Mr. Logan. Mr. Logan.
I'll take anything, man.
I'll take anything.
There you go.
All right, seeing no one else, that will complete item 4, public comment. My understanding is we have no responses or follow-up for public comment, item 5. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Listings on the consent agenda. Are there anyone wishing to pull any items?
No.
Okay, I'll run through the listing before the motion. We have bill listings, minutes of the May 2nd regular and work session proceedings, approval of council travel outside of the state, Fratelloni small scale mineral extraction, Los Tatias conditional use permit for outdoor expansion, Akron and County Road 42 alternative urban area-wide review update, the Holiday Station Store conditional use permit to allow for an expansion, the fire relief discussion, authorization creation of the HR management position for staff, and authorizing the Rosemount Port Authority to issue general obligation improvement and utility revenue bonds. With that,
Mayor, item I apologize.
did I miss one?
I'm sorry, yeah. L, excuse me.
L?
The ones that got just added over
Sorry.
Lifetime project.
And lifetime project.
receiving and rejecting the bids. Yeah, that was
Okay.
sent around over the last couple of days, so thank you.
Thank you for that correction. So through L, anyone wish to move the consent agenda for approval?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Klimpel, second by Essler to approve the consent agenda. Roll, please.
Essler,
Aye.
Wempel,
Aye.
Weisenthal,
Aye.
Tyson,
Aye.
Reski.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved, 5-0. We'll move on to item 7, public hearings, the 2023-2027 street reconstruction and overlay plan. Looking for
Good
Ms.
evening.
Malika.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This evening is similar to the last meeting with the public hearing. As part of state statute, a street reconstruction plan must be adopted to issue the bonds. Included in the plan are the Akron Avenue South extension to further the development for Amber Fields and the 2023 street improvement project. The projects will include street, utilities, and some pedestrian trail improvements. A portion of the projects will be paid for by assessments. The University of Minnesota is paying $900,000, and then a developer. The numbers included in the street reconstruction plan are estimates, and those numbers will be updated prior to the bond sale. This evening is the public hearing is only for the street reconstruction plan. It is not for the assessments for the 2023 street improvement project. That will be at the June 6th meeting. That will be the public hearing to hear those from any residents. The timeline for these bonds will follow the lifetime sale and the Police Department Public Works at this time. On June 20th, council will be asked to authorize the sale of the bonds, and then July 11th is the current plan for the sale. So with that, are there any questions this evening?
Open up to staff. Any questions?
Nope.
Right.
Nope.
No.
All right. So with that, then we will open up the floor for a public hearing. Again, anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Come to the podium, state your name and address and your comments. Ask if they can be restricted to 3 minutes.
Can you repeat what you said about what you're discussing tonight and what's in June?
Yes, this evening is for the street reconstruction plan that shows that we will be doing, selling bonds for the Akron Avenue South extension and the 23 street improvement plan. The next meeting will be regarding the assessments, the special assessments for that 23 street improvement project.
Yeah, can you kind of explain to her what the selling of the bonds does for the?
Okay, so, selling the bonds provides us with the funding. It's similar to taking a loan. That's the city's taking a loan to pay for the projects, to pay for the street and the water and sewer infrastructure to put it in, and then we pay that back. So it's just a loan the city's taking to pay for those projects.
What's the interest you're paying on the bonds?
Yep, I think we can, certainly we're going
Okay.
to have the mayor continue to run the meeting here. I think we don't know the interest rate at this point. We need to sell the bonds, so that'll be understood. We have a market check-in that we got today that was in the middle 3% for folks that have our same credit rating. But we will know that in July when we're able to sell the bonds. And at that point, again, we'll have an ability to respond to any questions, and then folks can also come and are encouraged to come on the June 6th city council meeting to engage in that public hearing where they can actually share their concerns with the city council at that time.
So this is currently a public hearing, so if you do have something to ask, I ask that you don't just shout from the galley. If you have a question, come forward, state your name, your address, your question, and then we'll have an opportunity to respond to that. Come forward, please. Thank you.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me up here, Mayor and Council. I'm Diane Lindo. I live at 2193 130th Way. You guys have all been very helpful with me with a lot of questions that I've had. I've sent you numerous emails because I live with a mom who's 85, and this is really freaking her out. So the only question that I have, and I have reached out to the state level, we all see on the news that there's tons of money out there, state level. I know a lot of times there are some fundings available, for street projects. And as you have all told us in the past, this is a pretty hefty price tag that a neighborhood is being asked to pay for the improvements to our neighborhood. And it is kind of a shock to our systems, even though we all know that obviously over the course of time, you do have to upgrade your roads and things like that. So I don't think any of us that living in our neighborhood discount the fact that those roads are horrible and we need to fix them. So my question is, have we exhausted everything that we possibly can at the state level to get funding that is needed and desired for this type of project?
Mr. Mayor, I think she's referring to
Yeah.
item later on her agenda.
Well, this is still relevant in as much as that this is for the bond that we're going to take out for all the reconstruction projects. So this isn't the neighborhood specific, but for the total program.
Sure.
The question I think is still relevant if we've exhausted all of our opportunities. I suspect a lot of street projects are not carried in a lot of bond referendums. They use that for primarily for state things. I would look to staff if they can speak to anything I'm misstating anything?
Yep, Mayor, members of the council, I think you've made a good statement. I think that, it's important to note, first of all, I would encourage folks to hang around for just a few more minutes. We'll hit this item under the new business. They'll get a lot more detail from City Engineer Brian Erickson about the project that you're specifically talking about. This agenda item, the public hearing, is related to our ability to take out some debt to fund the projects. You'll get a bunch more detail in about 8 minutes from City Engineer Erickson. But I think it's important to note, too, we are using our state funding in this project, so that's our municipal state aid funding. So we get that from the MnDOT and the state of Minnesota. We infuse those dollars into city projects to keep the cost down. And then certainly the city council has directed staff to infuse city dollars into the cost to cap your assessment at a level certain that we'll talk about at a separate agenda item here in a few moments. But yes, the short answer is yes. There's state funding in the project, and to the mayor's point, the state of Minnesota really trusts us to use our locally available resources, including some of which they give us, to fund our system. So there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles of road in the state, and we're all kind of responsible for our own roads, but for the funding that the state of Minnesota gives us. So, but it's a fair question.
As much as you see a lot of money being spent at the state level, we don't get a lot of that funding necessarily. It's other than the state aids for the road.
All right, well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? And the last time, anyone else? So with that, seeing no one else coming forward, I will close the public hearing. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is closed. With that, then I'll turn it back to council. Any other questions for Ms. Maleka?
Nope. No. Thank you.
I am looking for anyone to move the
I'll move
recommended
to adopt a resolution approving a street reconstruction and overlay plan and giving preliminary approval to the issuance of street reconstruction bonds.
Second.
Motion by Klimpel, second by Essler. Roll, please.
Klimpel. Aye. Weisenthal.
Aye.
Tyson.
Aye.
Fresky. Aye. Essler.
Aye.
That completes the public hearing, and the reconstruction and overlay plan is approved. Move on now to past item 8, there is no unfinished business, and item 9, new business. And this we have a few number, so everyone please be patient as we work through these items. The first item up is the Wolfson property purchase agreement. Mr. Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. As you probably all recall, we've been having a specific topic on some of our agendas recently, and that was the McMenemy land purchase. And we have gone through that process. We have closed on the property, and the city now owns 69 acres of beautiful wooded land up off of Bacardi Avenue, near Bacardi Avenue and 120th Street. And so with that, there is one more step to us securing that property for a city park, and that is to purchase, or at least consider purchasing, the Wolfson property. Now, the Wolfson property, if I could get some help from our staff over at the table.
3 years, nice.
3 years ago.
Yep. Yeah. Is this gonna zoom for me? Here it is.
I can do it here, Dan.
All right. So, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, as you see on your screens, the yellow outline property is the McMenemy property, which the city recently purchased and we've closed on. Somehow, some way, I'm not sure how it happened, when it happened, but it did happen many, many years ago. This box that is outlined in red was purchased by the Wolfson property, the Wolfson family. So the Wolfson property is really, in essence, dividing a portion of the McMenemy property and really holding us from moving through that property unencumbered. And so both staff and Dakota County have been working with the Wolfsons for, again, probably 20 years. We've been talking to them about, someday this is gonna happen and we're gonna come to you with a request for a purchase, and they've been really good to work with. So we have a plan that Dakota County would purchase the greenway easements and the development rights to the property for $254,700. They would also buy a greenway easement for $48,100. So that would allow that greenway to come across the property that the Schmitz own near North 20, and then cut through McMenemy Woods and then down through what was going to be the Wolfson property and then south, eventually out to the Flint Hills Athletic Complex and then out to Spring Lake Park and into Hastings after that. The city is looking at purchasing the fee title, much like what we did for the McMenemy property. The county buys all the development rights. They buy the greenway easement rights, and then we come in and we actually buy the fee title, so we own the property. We are asking the city council to consider spending $34,100 on buying that 9.91 acres from the Wolfsons. Staff is recommending that that funding comes from the Park Improvement Fund, which currently has a balance of about $3.9 million. So we have plenty of funding for this. Should this be approved by the council tonight, we would be looking at closing on this by about mid-June, after we do a site inspection and have a positive reaction from council about moving forward. So with that, I will stand and answer any questions that you might have.
Opening up to council. Any questions? Mr. Essler.
Yeah, when we purchased the other parcel in yellow,
Correct.
we would have known that this scenario existed with the
Yep.
red property, right?
Yes, we've known for 25 years.
So why just process-wise, why didn't we deal with it at the same time we were dealing with the rest of the property?
We have been. They've been really working side by side with McMenemy's and the Wolfsons. The decision was made by Dakota County to secure the McMenemy property first, because without the McMenemy property, the Wolfson property really isn't all that valuable to us, because it's so landlocked on all sides right now. So that's why the county gave direction, and they buy first. So they will go buy the easements, and they will buy the greenway easements, and then we follow up with that easement. So their choice was that we wanted to handle the McMenemy property first.
Did we have that parcel under contract before we were negotiating on the rest of it?
It was verbally being talked about. There were appraisals done through the DNR and through Dakota County. And so this property, there were verbal agreements.
Okay. And then the reason I
with
ask
Dakota
is,
County.
obviously, after we close on the property, that red strip becomes a lot more valuable to the seller? Or put it this way, it becomes more valuable to us to have it.
It does, but still, I think both the seller and the buyers, we know that everything is based on what the appraisals are coming in at. And those appraisals are looked at very closely by the DNR, and that's why we had such a long closing period with the McMenemy properties, because the DNR rejected a couple of the appraisals, wanted a few things adjusted, wanted prices adjusted, and so Dakota County worked with the DNR on that, got those all approved, and then looked to take down the property from the Wolfson family.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments, questions? All right. Certainly can you point out, I guess it might be a little hard to see on there, but where is this actually located in the community here?
Yeah, so the property is located just east of the Wickland Preserve. So this is the Wickland Preserve that the city currently owns. This is the Wickland Preserve. This is property owned by Ina Wickland. This is Bacardi Avenue. Just south of off the paper is Bon Air Path. And at the top of the page is 120th Street. So this is just at the end of the property. So the city owns the Wickland Preserve. We're going to be getting an easement for a trail along the north side of the Schmitz property near North 20 Brewing. And then that trail would run through the properties here and then continue off to the east. And so it's in the northeast section of Rosemount, real close to the border of Inver Grove Heights.
And when do you anticipate this to be open to the public, like as a park and through the trails?
I would say, you know, one of the things that we are waiting for is to get access from the south. And I know that the McMenemys own this parcel down here, or we might potentially be able to get access a little bit from the east. So I'm guessing probably 2 years,
Okay, thanks.
worst case scenario.
All righty. With that, anyone wish to move the recommended action?
I move the motion to adopt a resolution that approves the city council entering into a purchase agreement in the format approved by the city attorney to purchase the fee title to the Wolfson property.
I'll second.
Motion by Tyson, second by Fresky. Roll, please.
Weisenthal,
Aye.
Tyson,
Aye.
Fresky. Aye. Essler,
Aye.
Klimpel.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Completes item 9A. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Move on to 9B. Accepting bids, award contract, declare cost to be assessed, and set the assessment hearing for the 2023 Neighborhood Infrastructure Improvement Project. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. You have in front of you tonight, there are two resolutions. The first one, of course, is for awarding the contract for the 2023 Neighborhood Infrastructure Improvement Project. The second one is the one that calls the assessment hearing. So I do want to make one small correction from earlier this evening. It was mentioned that the assessment hearing would be on June 6th. It's actually going to be June 20th, which would be the second council meeting of June. So just so everybody who's listening was here, I want to make sure that they're on the right evening. I mean, certainly welcome to come to the 6th as well. There just won't be an assessment hearing. So at this point, we received bids. They are very competitive. We had 6 bids. Of those 6, 5 of them were actually below the engineer's estimate. The 2 lowest bids were were less than 1% apart, so $23,000. I'm sure the second low bidder is rather disappointed they didn't sharpen their pencil just a little bit more. So I will say that and again, those bids, like I said, were almost all below the engineer's estimate. The low bid was a little over 20% below the engineer's estimate. So I just want to make sure that that's mentioned. So the bid climate, the bidding climate that we were very concerned about earlier this year seems to have improved substantially, which is a good thing. And of course, when the next project comes here in a couple weeks or so, that's also indicated as far as the Akron bids were on there. So I do want to mention that again, there was a bigger change between feasibility report than we've done a couple other ones. So throughout that whole thing, the final total project cost, as shown in the memo, is just a little over $4 million. That includes, of course, the low bid price of roughly $3.4 million. We have a 5% construction contingency on top of that, which is about $170,000. We have a $400,000 overhead, which is the engineer's time, our consulting engineer, and the work that they do. And then we also have 4 properties that we have proposed some easement on, either temporary or permanent type easements. I will say, just to make a couple points, for both the construction project and the design, those costs are paid only for the expenses that are part of it. So we do unit price contracts for our construction. So if we don't use all the quantity that we have in the bid, those prices would then come in a little bit lower. So I do want to make a point. We have several different funding streams that we've used for this project. So we have our Street Capital Improvement Plan Fund. We have special assessments, municipal state aid, as Mr. Martin mentioned earlier this evening. And then we have three, they're the core funds or the trunk funds, which we use for extending the utility system. So the water, sewer, and storm systems are all paid for by that funding. So just to kind of clarify any thoughts or concerns about the cost that's assessed back to the property owners, it has nothing to do with the utility. It's only the surface cost, so the street, curb, and gutter thing. And then I do want to mention just a few things. I know earlier we had, back in March when we did the improvement hearing, the assessments at that point in time were estimated at almost $18,000 per property. Using that same formula, those assessments would have been about $14,700. However, again, council, you've heard a number of concerns from the residents, and understandably so. I don't want to discount their concerns at all. We're proposing that at this point, those assessments be capped at $10,000 per parcel, which means that the assessed amount, instead of $500,000 and change, is about $350,000. That means roughly $150,000 or $160,000 additional dollars is picked up from the city cost. So let's see. I think with that, so that is the contract award portion of what I have to say. I'll maybe pause there if there's any questions on that before I mention any more about the assessments.
Can you mention what the original estimate was and then the difference? Do you have those numbers?
I do. The engineer's estimate at the time of bidding was about $4.2 million. If we go all the way back to when we did our feasibility report earlier this year,
right.
The total project cost, so again, a little different, was just under $5 million. So it's roughly $1 million less than what we estimated at the feasibility report timeframe, which would have been roughly March. So.
Okay, I just wanted to call that out because that's a substantial savings right there. So that's
yes.
That's good news.
And I will say, so that's roughly a 20% savings from the feasibility until contract award for total project cost. And I will say that as part of that, reducing from the almost $15,000 using our formula for assessments down to 10 is about a 30% savings. So a little bit more than the actual reduction in the cost there. So.
Thank you.
I just wanted to call out one of the revenue areas. One of the speakers during the hearing, and it was mentioned by Mr. Martin, the municipal state aid is listed there. So there is some state dollars in here. This calls out about just under $612,000.
That's correct. So Bacardi is part of our what we call municipal state aid street. So there are larger, more collector type roads. They see more traffic. Bacardi is one of those streets, and so as part of that, and so it's paid for the from the gas tax, from the motor vehicle sales tax. That goes into a big pot that the state has. And then that's distributed via, they have several formulas that they use, and a portion of it gets sent to the counties. It's used for the county state aid highways. And then there's also a portion that comes to each of the cities that are larger than 5,000 population. They're municipal state aid cities. Rosemount gets roughly about $1.2 or $1.3 million a year that goes into our account, if you will. Can only be used for state aid streets. And that's just a realization by the state that these collector streets see more than just the local traffic there, so.
Okay. Other questions?
I'm wondering, just because we have some people in the audience who I think are here for this topic, if you could just kind of explain the communications plan we have in place. As a council, we had a special meeting at 5:15 and we reviewed some literature that'll be sent to those homes, but if you could just kind of give a quick overview of that. Yes, ma'am. And also include the change in financing that we included in this one as well.
Sure. So as council knows, we met this evening. There'll be a letter that goes out later this week is our plan. A few things that are in there is we have an upcoming neighborhood meeting that will be at the end of the month. So May 31st, between 5 and 7, it'll be at the Rosemount Community Center. And so look for that letter, and I'll be there along with our project manager for the consultant. We're looking to set up one-on-one meetings with the property owners to be able to discuss the process going forward. So schedule, what you can expect, the sort of impacts to, living your life on a large street project, particularly with adding utilities. That adds a whole different, issue into the whole mix, because there may be times when you might not be able to get, drive into your driveway. We do our best, and the contractor knows that they can't just keep those driveways impacted for weeks on end. We'll take the mailboxes, and they'll be put all in a gang area, so they'll group all of the mailboxes. We work with the postmaster to make sure it's in a spot that's appropriate. If your driveway's blocked, for example, and it's garbage day, the contractor is responsible for taking your garbage can, your recycling, bringing it to a central location where they can pick it up, and then they're responsible for bringing the can back to the end of your driveway. So you won't see a change there. You're not going to have to walk, a quarter mile down the road and drag your garbage can in the rain on some July morning. So. I mentioned the neighborhood meeting. I mentioned, we've had some adjustments to the financing. So again, that is a reduction. Those estimated assessments using $10,000. And again, I'm using those numbers as estimated because at this point, council hasn't approved that. We haven't finished that process. The first installment on that payment would be roughly $1,400 and it goes, you can finance it on your property tax over a 15-year period. I should have mentioned that one earlier. Thank you, Councilmember Fresky. So generally, we have a 10-year time frame for our assessments, but because, again, the size of these, we've been working with the finance director, and 15 years is what those assessments will be financed at. So you pay essentially 1/15 of the amount that's assessed plus the interest going.
So just to reiterate that, our normal standard is 10 years. We've extended that to 15 years.
That's correct.
For this
Mr. Mayor.
project.
That's correct.
The assessment portion is capped at $10,000.
That is correct, and that's again, that was a realization. We realized it on our part. That's a big number, but we waited, brought that to council, and thank you for your support on making some adjustments there as well. So, and again, there'll be some additional information regarding utility connections in there. And again, my phone number is on the letter. Our consulting engineer's phone number will also be on the letter. We also plan to, at the neighborhood meeting, have the on-site inspector there, so he will be part of that meeting. He'll be available to meet and talk with residents, and he's going to be the face of the city, if you will, on that project. He's one of WSB's employees. He's been working in the city for a couple of years now, so he's pretty familiar with how the projects run. He does a great job communicating. And again, we always, if there's questions or concerns, you can certainly call me. You can call Jeff Pearson, and then John Buckholz will be the on-site inspector.
So with the letter going out towards the end of this week, and the neighborhood hearing here at the end of the month, what other opportunities will residents have to discuss their specific case, I guess?
Certainly, anytime. They can certainly call me or Jeff at any point in time. Publicly, we'll have, we have the contract award. We have the assessment hearing that will be coming up in a few weeks on June 20th. And then, of course, our neighborhood meeting. Those will be the sort of the last public pieces. And then, of course, we're looking at trying to do some additional neighborhood, maybe a weekly informational type meeting as well. We don't have that nailed down yet, but I know that Mr. Pearson has used that successfully in the past to just help, we just sort of find a corner, we're gonna be there at 4 o'clock today. If you wanna show up, ask questions, we'll hang around, for sure a half an hour, maybe an hour. Please stop by, ask your questions, or certainly you can always call me, Jeff, or John.
Then could you speak to the schedule? I know we've had a few dates here. If you could, I see in here there's a schedule layout.
There is, yes. So we're at the point now, right? We're awarding the contract. The next one, we'll have our public open house on May 31st. So that date was not in the council memo because I was still trying to nail it down. So we've got it nailed down now. We have our assessment hearing on June 20th. I'm going to say that the project is going to start probably sometime mid-June, maybe late June or so. And then we're looking at substantial completion, which means, the pavement's down, the restoration is mostly complete. We realize a number of times that, folks might have some concerns the next spring. And not from plow damage. I mean, this is outside of plow damage kind of thing. And so there might be some restoration next year, but generally that completion date is going to be, I'm going to say November. I know the contractor's probably going to push to be earlier than that, so probably October.
So roughly the disruption period will be about 5 months.
Yes. And once they get the utilities in, that's really the biggest and hardest disruption. After that, when they start getting to the gravel, that base course, and then once they get pavement down, once the gravel's in place, there's no problem for the travelers, the traveling public to get through there, so.
Other questions for council?
Nope.
None.
All right.
The only other thing I just want to mention, Mr. Mayor, we do have the call for the assessment hearing. So again, that's coming up on June 20th. That is the second resolution that is in the packet for council, and there will be an additional mailing. So I mentioned the letter going out at the end of this month. There will be another one that is legally required under state statute to each of the property owners, of which there are 35. And so we'll have that letter out. It'll be out. There's also a notice that goes in the paper, but I think most of the property owners have heard at least part of that, and again, they'll see those letters as they come in.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So before us, we have two actions. The first, again, is accepting the bids and awarding a contract. The second is declaring the cost to be assessed and calling the assessment hearing. Again, this is not the assessment. That is, we've mentioned it multiple times. That's June 20th. So with that, if there's no other questions, comments, I'll look to first recommended action.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolutions related to the 2023 Neighborhood Infrastructure Improvement Project, City Project 2023-04. First one is accepting bids and awarding a contract.
I'll second.
Motion by Essler, second by Fresky. Roll, please.
Tyson?
Aye.
Fresky?
Aye.
Essler?
Aye.
Wemple?
Aye.
Weisenthal?
Aye. 5-0 passes the accepting the bids and awarding a contract. And the second one, declaring the cost to be assessed and calling the assessment hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Essler, second by Limple. Roll, please.
Fresky?
Aye.
Essler?
Aye.
Wemple?
Aye.
Weisenthal?
Aye.
Tyson?
Aye.
And that completes 5-0 on the second motion. That completes the recommended actions for item 9B. Thank you very much. All right. 9C, lifetime project bids. Mr. Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. Before you this evening are a handful of bids that came in for the Lifetime Facility Project. And in your memo, originally it said we had 6 specialty areas coming to you tonight. Over the weekend, we got 3 more in from our construction management team. So tonight, we're asking you to consider 9 low bid awards, and those areas would include number 1, earthwork, utilities, and paving. Number 2, building structural. Number 3 is concrete and masonry. The 4th area is aquatics. The 5th is the elevator. The 6th is fire suppression. The 7th is electrical. The 8th is storefront and curtain wall. And the 9th is food service. So we went out to bid for this project, and originally we had 14 specialty areas that we took bids on. We are looking for the lowest and qualified, most responsive bidders to award these projects to. We are working with the project executives at Lifetime to come up with what the final budget will be. I wish I could give you that, but I can tell you that we are going to be going back out to bid for a few of these areas because of inconsistencies. If you look at the bid sheet that's attached, you can see under exterior athletic, the Upper Midwest Athletics did not include a bid security with their bid. So that was their irregularity. Thus, we have to rebid that. So we'll be doing that. But I can tell you that based on the numbers that we have seen, the project team identified that we're within about $50,000 of the estimator's construction cost estimate. So we're real close to where we want to be. And you can tell that some of the numbers were really, really close. One of them I noticed, if you look under 03A, under concrete and masonry, between the first and second bidders, you're talking, barely a couple $1,000s. So we feel like we got good prices on this. We are looking forward to moving forward on this should the council choose to approve these bids this evening. Obviously, the bids we brought forward tonight include really the most important bids, and that's, the grading and the utility work. There's some building structural that we need to get ordered because of the long lead time. Same thing with some elevator and some fire suppression equipment, things like that. It's a little longer lead time, so we wanted to get those in front of you right away. But the plan is, if this is all approved and goes as scheduled, we'd be looking to be out there sometime in early July with the groundbreaking, with the trucks and the earth being moved. And we're looking at potentially a groundbreaking sometime in late June is what we're talking about, where it's actual ceremonial event for us. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Council open. Mr. Essler.
Yeah, so just trying to reconcile the scopes here. So you've got the 9 that we're being asked to accept.
Yep.
There was originally 14. So which of the 5, so for example, the general construction 01A, obviously looking at the disparity between the 1 and 2 bids there, obviously that's one you're not.
Yep, that's one
asking us
that
to
we will
accept?
be, yep, that's someone we need to go back out for bid for on that. There were just inconsistencies with the pricing and inconsistencies with the information provided. And you can just tell that, I think both of the firms looking at their bids know that there were some inconsistencies there as soon as we saw those. We're also looking at the combined, let's see, which other ones do I have? Combined mechanical,
And roofing is next.
landscaping, and
I think roofing.
And what,
roofing is another one.
as you identify them, what are can you explain the reasons why you're not recommending?
A lot of these,
accepting?
because they did not submit full information with their bids, even though maybe they were the low bidder because they were the
Okay.
only bidder. There might have been inconsistent information, and they might not also have been one of those things where we asked for qualifications. If they didn't provide anything and they were asked for that as part of the bid package, that would be a reason we're looking at it. And then again, there's another one where we didn't have all the submitted paperwork in the area of like the athletics, exterior athletics, they just didn't give us a bid bond, so that was one of them that we have to redo. But through working on the paperwork and going through and vetting all this, those were a couple of the main areas that we had inconsistencies that we want to clarify and get rebid if need be.
And then when you mentioned we're within 50,000, is that just on the 9 scopes that you're
That was
recommending award, or-
taking all of the numbers that we received. No, I can tell you that $50,000 is gonna change a little bit because we feel like this general condition number, this 01A, is probably gonna have to change a little bit.
What number did you use to stay within $50,000?
Yeah, well, and that was, it's a good question because, they were looking at about, $42.5 million was what they looked at for the original bid package. And the bid prices, once we tallied everything up, it was real close.
But
With contingencies
which
and
one
things like that.
Which one did they take here, the 7 or the 16?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I think the answer is neither, right, Dan? I mean, what they've been doing is running numbers and breaking those back
Yeah.
apart. They're gonna break that apart into a number of sub-bids, so.
yeah,
none
so,
of those
so
numbers-
general construction, neither bid was acceptable, so those will be rejected and those will be rebid.
and I guess, I mean, that's one of the bigger scopes,
Yeah.
obviously.
Oh, you're talking about which number did they use to
Yeah.
come within
Yeah.
50? They used
Yeah.
the lower of the two.
Yeah,
And the
so
lower,
that-
it's a little low, but it's not, 16 was way above what the estimated
So,
number
so,
was.
but I'm just a little concerned then, because, I mean, obviously 7.4 versus 16.1, someone's way off, or they're both way off.
Yeah.
So if we're within 50,000, but we're using what appears to be a much lower number.
Yeah.
I don't know how we proceed
And we
without
don't-
knowing the full scope of the price. Because if we accept the 9 and the other 5 come back higher, now in total, we're gonna be higher, but we're committing basically to 9 of the 14 scopes. So I don't know how we would be comfortable, I don't know how I'd be comfortable doing that at this point.
Well, we need to rebid some of these based on inconsistencies, and we can't accept a bid when there's no bid bond. So like, that's a great example of, that one just has to be rebid, and we don't have a choice on something like that. And the bid inconsistencies that we see with the general conditions, we feel like the number's probably gonna be closer to 8.5.
But
Once
then
it's
that puts
rebid.
us $1 million over budget.
I think, to clarify, the 50,000 is to Lifetime's internal estimate, it's not to the 48 million. So, and Dan, I think.
Yes.
Right, so we might invite, the
Yeah.
project manager, Brent, is just popped in the back of the room, if he wants to pop up too, Dan.
Yeah.
From Lifetime, if he's willing, to give an internal thought, but we're not pushing up against the limit of the project, Councilmember Essler, it's to Lifetime's internal number, which is outside of, they're bringing their own cash for FF&E, which is $8-9 million number. So their number is significantly different than that 48. To be within 50,000 of it, I think is important.
I mean, for me anyway, it'd be good if we could lay that out and understand the total, awarded, what the low bid was, just so we can see what the risk is, that if it's above that, what that range is, and then compare that to both our number, 48 million, and then as well as the Lifetime's internal number. It would be good to just have that comparison.
Okay. Yeah, hey, Brian.
Do I need to state name and address?
Yes.
Brent Marlowe, 13987 Abbeyfield Avenue, Rosemount, Minnesota. Lifetime Construction, project executive for the project. In regards to 01A, we did bring the low bidder in to scope them out into our office, and after tallying what they actually have included and didn't have included, it was roughly $500,000 based on previous historical cost data and what we've put together for our cost estimate. And like Dan said, we're gonna break it out into multiple packages now, and that'll actually reduce the amount of overhead and that 01A is carrying. The general conditions, the superintendents, we're breaking it up so that that's not required anymore. So I know Dan said $1 million, we're hoping within 500,000 at the most, and that means we're breaking it out into millwork, supply and install, The big one is drywall, fireproofing, painting, ACT. Then we have flooring in tile. And the other one, I think that's pretty much it for that one. The mechanical and landscaping, we have numbers, we're just finishing scoping them out. It's close on the low ones. Those aren't going out for rebid. And then the roofing, they didn't submit on a bid form, that was a technicality. They're gonna rebid, we've been talking to them, they'll have the same bid, if not better, because the number's public.
So with Gardner then, when you dissected Gardner's number, what was that outcome? What was the?
They didn't quote the scope of work. They didn't understand the scope package and included more work than was required out of that scope.
It happens.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, council, it was a little,
Double.
yeah. Yeah.
Well,
and
this
I-
feels like there's a mistake in there. Somebody added up their sheet twice.
Right, and we did, I mean, our internal estimate was right around 7 million. We got another bid that was just over 8, but it was late. I understand the public bid, how it has to take place, but a lot of people saw the lifetime name on it. And even though we had plenty of bid instructions, kept sending it out to every bidder, asking if they had any questions, if we can help them submit online. Some of them still didn't understand the public bid process. They
I
thought it was-
understand.
I know, I'm still getting,
I mean, I guess, here's a question, I guess, I'm comparing this to the process that we did on the Public Works and Police facility. You know, we had 2 phases of bids, and when we got the first round of bids, we had a comparison of just the scopes that we were bidding in the first phase, and I think we were asked to approve just the first phase, and then we know that there's gonna be a second phase yet to be approved. But at least we had that apples to apples comparison of, here's the scopes, here's the budget, internal, you know, Lifetime's budget and our budget.
Sure.
And be able to compare the scopes that we're approving, because obviously, if at least we have apples to apples comparison of what the scopes of work are side by side, we can at least get a comfort that we're within range, that we're not really over budget, because again, you know, my concern is specifically in general construction, when you look at the 2, and we're saying we're gonna use the lower, obviously, the flag goes up. It seems odd that we're gonna assume that the 7.4 is the right number, and that's what's keeping us on pace.
yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a huge spread.
Yeah.
But the spread isn't, I think when you're looking at it, it's almost like you would throw out the 16, because your estimate was around 7.
Right, that's not even in the realm of
Yeah.
what we were looking for.
And I think, I do agree that it's a good idea to break up that package. It's a little more intensive to manage more subs, but I think you'll get better pricing.
Yeah, it's more appealing to the bidders.
You might get more bidders.
Yeah.
I did have a question on 2 of them, one in particular, the roofing and also the steel. You mentioned the roofer wasn't valid, I guess, but I also see the steel, and both of the, certainly the steel one's a little large. Are you comfortable in the sense that we didn't get another bidder on it? I know Lejeune's local here, for the type of steel, I guess, it was there
That was right within our range as well. That includes Wells Precast.
Okay.
They did get a couple bids on precast. They got a couple erection bids. But Lejeune is carrying that whole.
So it's more than just steel and
Whole package.
type thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yeah, to me, I guess, it feels like we're just missing that side by side. Usually that's part of the package, especially when we go scope by scope like this, it would be side by side.
Sure.
At least
By
your
scope.
estimate would be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, if there's 2 estimates, if there's the city estimate and there's Lifetime's estimate, I'd like to see compared to both.
Yeah, I mean, our pre-con department has all the
Yep.
numbers.
Yep. So I don't know what that means for approval tonight without seeing that. I'm not super
Well,
comfortable.
We don't, the city doesn't have an estimate. Our estimate is our
48
construction.
million macro.
48 million was the cap that we would ever bond for.
Yep.
When we've been working with Lifetime, we were looking at a number closer to 42 as what we were hoping, estimating construction costs would come in at.
So of that 42 million, what's the scope we're being asked to approve, and how does that compare to that scope within the 42 million? Do we have that?
Not,
We don't have the
don't
side-by-side
have the
comparison in
side-by-side
front of
with
us.
me, no.
Because I don't have any view of how, really, are we $50,000 apart, and is that real just on the scopes that we're being asked to approve? So I'm challenged in approving it.
Brent, maybe you could comment on, I mean, can the project handle doing this approval on June 6th? Could we punt this for 3 weeks, and then does that align potentially with the other projects we're still scoping out, so we could do them all on that night and give?
Yeah,
Councilor
I mean,
Essler
if there's any hesitation, I'd rather hold off and make sure you're comfortable approving.
Well,
it.
I'm just one of
Right.
5.
I mean,
so-
it could, the biggest thing is getting the precast ordered. And we are looking for the second round of bids due June 1st. So we possibly could have them for June 6th, depending.
Yeah, and again, guys, I'm just one of 5. So
Yeah.
if the other 4 are comfortable with it, I think you
Yeah, I
can
mean, it-
pursue it. But I'm just not comfortable without seeing it side by side.
I will say,
What's that?
I mean, the grading.
Are we comfortable with it or not? It's like,
I don't want to,
I am.
Okay.
I don't want to hold up the project.
Yeah, there are some, as Dan mentioned, some long lead items, like the
Yeah.
electrical switch gear.
That's a good one.
Yeah, you know, it's a.
Yeah, if the rest of the council is comfortable, I'd suggest you proceed with the motion. The reason I'll vote no is just, I'm a finance guy.
I know.
And I need to see the numbers side by side, and I'm just reluctant to sign up for it without seeing the full scope, and even less so seeing the scope that we're signing up for side by side.
Yeah.
That's just.
I mean,
my-
regardless how the vote comes out tonight, we'll provide that to council tomorrow.
Would
Okay.
expect.
So,
Well, with that all said, I'm a construction guy, so I get it. I understand the long lead, and at the very least, there'd be some things here that if we were going forward, we'd want to release, so I'm comfortable with it.
This is why finance guys and construction guys are often like this.
So anyone want to move the recommended action?
We can do it. I'll make a motion to recommend the city council accept the bids and award contracts to the low bidder as described in the letters of recommendation for the following specialty areas. Number 1, earthwork, utilities, and paving. Number 2, building structural. Number 3, concrete masonry. Number 4, aquatics. Number 5, elevator. Number 6, fire suppression. Number 7, electrical. Number 8, storefront entrances and curtain wall. And number 9, food service.
I second.
Motion by Fresky, second by Tyson. Roll, please.
Essler,
Nay.
Wemple,
Aye.
Weisenthal,
Aye.
Tyson,
Aye.
Reski.
Aye.
9C is approved 4-1. And I understand the concern. We're good. That information will get to us tomorrow, so we'll get that spread out and make everybody comfortable with it. Thank you. Jeez. That completes 9C. We'll move on to 9D, request for an amendment to the existing conditional use permit approved in 2020 for North 20 Brewing to extend hours of operation and allow for outdoor live music and food trucks on site. Let's see if I can find the deal here. Ms. Hogan.
All right. So a little bit of a summary of the request. So the applicant is requesting an amendment to an existing conditional use permit that was approved in June 2020 for North 20 Brewing to extend the hours of operation and to allow for outdoor live music and food trucks on site. The applicant is requesting to amend conditions 3 and 17 of their current conditional use permit. I will show later on in the presentation what the conditions of the current conditional use permit are, so you can kind of see that outlined. Aside from the 2 conditions, the applicant is requesting the remaining 15 conditions associated with the previously approved conditional use permit will remain in effect and will be required to be complied with. So aerial of the site location, so you can see it's located at 12266 Bacardi Avenue. It's located east Bacardi Avenue, about a mile north of Bon Air Path and about a fourth of a mile south of 120th Street.
little bit closer view of it. This aerial was taken in April 18th of this year, so you can kind of see what the site looks like as of now. And then a couple photos from Bacardi Avenue. On the left-hand side, you can see looking north on Bacardi Avenue towards 120th Street. And then the top right photo looking in at the site, looking north east. And then the bottom one looking directly at the site, looking east. And then the next couple photos are kind of panning around from Bacardi Avenue. So photo on the left is looking northwest across the street. The middle photo is looking directly west across the road, and then the one on the right is looking south down Bacardi Avenue. And then these last two photos are looking in at the site from Bacardi Avenue as well. So here are the approved conditions with that 2020 conditional use permit. So you can see highlighted in condition 3, they are requesting to change the times from Monday through Thursday to allow 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. hours of operation, Friday and Saturday from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and then Sunday from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then they are asking for that 17th condition, outdoor live music or on-site food trucks are prohibited. They're asking that to be scratched. So the recommended actions in front of the council today is Planning Commission recommends the City Council adopt the following motion, which motion to adopt a resolution denying an amendment to an existing conditional use permit for North 20 Brewing located at 12266 Bacardi Avenue to extend the hours of operation and to allow for outdoor live music and food trucks. City Council will need to approve one of the following motions listed below that, either a motion to adopt a resolution upholding the decision of the Planning Commission denying the amendment to the existing conditional use permit, or to motion to adopt a resolution approving an amendment to an existing conditional use permit for North 20 Brewing located at 12266 Bacardi Avenue to extend the hours of operation and to allow for outdoor live music and food trucks on site. I will leave it on this page, but I can answer any questions that the council may have at this time.
Open up to council for questions, comments for staff.
Questions? I got some questions. So I watched the 2.5 hours of the Planning Commission, read all the notes. So I do have a couple questions just to make sure I'm understanding. On the food trucks, did that land where and I know the Planning Commission, you voted 0-7 to approve, so 7-0 to deny. But on just trying to get my head around some of the questions and some of the issues that were raised, because I didn't hear a lot of concern about food trucks.
No,
I didn't hear any residents really speak to that, other than if they were gonna park out in Bacardi, but.
Which wouldn't be allowed. I'll kind of show you, this is an outline in front of you of what is within the mobile food trucks portion of the code. So technically the parcel is zoned agricultural, and as of now within that, it's not allowed within agricultural, so they wouldn't only be allowed to do a special events permits, which a parcel is only allowed up to 4 of those per year, and that would go through the city clerk, and also other departments within the city would have to review that and approve that as well.
So I'm looking at item 310.3E, no more than 4 permits will be issued to a residential property in a calendar year. Is this considered a residential property?
Since technically it's within agricultural, it wouldn't be allowed, so it would be under that special events permit, since agricultural zoned properties aren't specified within the ordinance.
Okay, so if we strike that from the conditional use permit, if we strike that, they're still hindered by only 4 times a year? Is that where that ends up then?
Well, technically, how the conditional use permit sits, outdoor live music or on-site food trucks are prohibited, so that would still have to.
So if that's struck.
Then the 4, yes, unless.
Then they're required by statute that they can only have the 4 times.
Yes, unless the ordinance is adjusted to allow for agricultural zoning in that, as you can kind of see within location. It doesn't specify that it is allowed within agricultural zone properties, so it would have to be adjusted if they wanted more than the 4 with the special events permit.
Okay, so they would have to ask for that specifically if they wanted to do more than 4?
Yes.
And I guess, I'm assuming they'll want to get up and talk a little bit, but I guess that would be one question I'd have for them to maybe address. Because I know what I heard in the Planning Commission meeting was that Mr. Schmitz was saying that,
He doesn't.
It kind of competes with their own
Yes,
kitchen, so they
yeah.
probably wouldn't do it a whole lot, but I'm just asking from a flexibility standpoint, if we, if they have special events and they have 6 special events, are we really gonna hold them to the 4? That's what I'm trying to, I guess, understand, but what I'm hearing is if they want to go to the 5th and 6th, in that scenario, they have to
That would need to be
come
adjusted
forward.
within the ordinance.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, yep.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Essler, if I could, one of the themes you'll probably hear from some of staff's responses to questions is that regardless of the conditions outlined in this conditional use permit, any applicant or any business would still be subject to any and all regulations within city code. So it's, I think that what we were just exploring there, that's going to kind of be likely a theme throughout the discussion.
Yeah, and I get that. I'm just trying to make sure I understand what the real requirements are that they're, okay, because let's face it, if we feel good about the current owners, the conditional use goes with the property. So we can't just rely on these owners if they decide to sell the business and somebody else comes in and they're not as eager to, be good neighbors, we have to deal with that. So that's why I'm kind of making sure I understand what those real requirements are. Okay, on music, my understanding, again, that seems to be a big issue, big concern, understandably so. But I'm also understanding that as always, would be subject to a sound ordinance.
Yes,
Which
correct.
seems pretty tight.
Yeah,
So again, looking at, because I heard the scenario he used where they had a karaoke, someone with a karaoke machine and it got too loud, so he shut them down. So I heard that example, but again, we can't always rely on the Schmitz family is gonna own this property. So if it turns over to somebody who isn't as eager to shut down karaoke if they're loud, we just have to be able to deal with that. But my understanding is that would be subject to the noise ordinance, right?
Yeah, for instance, if you look out in front of you currently, I have those up. So like in the agricultural district, which this is under with the farm wineries and microbreweries and everything, there is that condition 5, outdoor seating is subject to performance standards outlined in outdoor seating in section 3.114, which is listed below, and also subsection 11.414D as well listed below. So they would still have to adhere to kind of what's outlined in 3.114, that's 6, and also you can see in 11.414, where is it? In the conditions within there, which speaks to noise within there as well. So they would have to still adhere to everything that's in front of you, and also noise ordinances that are subject within the code.
And then another big topic was the parking on Bacardi. And I wasn't real clear during the planning commission meeting, I wasn't real clear on what's allowed and what's not allowed. Is it legal? Because as I finished watching it, I walked away from it thinking, well, okay, so it is legal to park on Bacardi. So if someone lives on Bacardi, is having an open house, a grad party, that's okay. But because this is a business, they're not allowed?
So parking is allowed on Bacardi, but as a condition, as you can see in front of you, approved CUP conditions, number 9 says no parking for patrons along Bacardi. So it is technically allowed on Bacardi, but with this conditional use permit, it does state in condition 9 that patrons of the brewery are not allowed to park on Bacardi.
So I guess when the applicant comes up and speaks, I guess I would like to understand if they're gonna be accepting of that and if that's something that they're willing and able to live with.
And also want to show, if we can see on the aerial, not very, but a little bit south, they are extending out their parking lot as well for overflow parking. And again, the applicant can also speak a little more on that as well.
So just to make sure I'm understanding from staff then, so a neighbor up the street has a grad party, they can have as many vehicles on Bacardi as they want if they have a large number of guests, but because they're a business and they're signing up for this is more restrictive.
Because of the conditional use permit and that condition 9, it is more restrictive with the no parking with the patrons from the brewery.
And then one last question that I've got, and maybe more of a comment on the hours. I think if you play back the tape when we approved this project, I think a number of us on council made a comment that the hours they had requested initially, we were comfortable with. We did at the time accept the planning, I'm just speaking for myself now, but at the time, I accepted the recommendation of the planning committee, or the planning commission, which was, tighter restrictions. And I think I even vocalized that in the meeting, that I felt like, I think I even said to the Schmitz family, I said, well, let's see how it goes. Let's see if you're a good neighbor. Let's see if you're responsible, following the rules. And then I think if if that's all going well, I think you should come back to the council and ask. So I think I actually suggested that. So I guess in terms of where I stand, the hours that are being asked for, I would have supported those at the beginning. All we've seen now is almost 2 years of responsible, and again, I'm understanding it's not just the Schmitz family we've got to be dealing with here, because it's anybody else who takes over that facility. But even with that, I'm very comfortable with the hours, and I would have been comfortable 2 years ago when we approved it in the first place. So just want to make sure I voice that. But that's all my questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other council members?
Can I just have a clarifying point? Can you go back to the slide about music?
Yes.
So I think, so even if we approve music, it's only indoors? Is that how I'm reading it because of 3-1-14? Because you can't have music, televisions, bands, amplified sound, or any activity that would disturb the speed outdoor patio, is that correct? So if we did give them the ability to have music, can they only have it indoors? Or am I confusing myself with this 3-1-14?
As it states within there, it says as long as it does not disturb the peace. You know, they do allow for music on outdoor patios as background music.
Okay,
So,
so they could have it outdoors. It's just
Yes.
what is the definition of disturb the peace?
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's once again where our normal city ordinances would kick into effect, right? If
Yes,
there's
yes.
complaint and that type of thing.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
Others? Either? Any other questions, comments? Did want to, has there been any reported, I don't know, disturbances or anything, wild parties going on out there that?
Well, over the last year, we kind of explained this in the planning commission meeting as well. There was 3 calls to the police department regarding North 20 Brewing. 2 of them were regarding parking on Bacardi, and then one of them was from the Schmitz family regarding a patron at their facility, so.
Right.
Yeah, and Mayor, I would just like to state, I think that this business is asking for some very reasonable requests with this particular conditional use permit revision. You know, I feel we have enough existing ordinances in place to handle most of the concerns, and I would recommend that we actually approve the motion.
Yeah,
I
and
agree with that.
And I would just say too, that, you know, one of the things that I think we all are talking about is leading with positive intent. And, you know, when Dave came up and spoke, I mean, talking about a lot of the issues that were addressed, I think he not only addressed them, but said that he wants to collaborate and wants to work with the neighbors, because he has been a neighbor for a long time. And that was felt. And once again, to Paul's point, we have to think long-term as a council. And we also support small businesses, and this is definitely a destination. As we're expanding with the referendum of the school being expanded, we're going to be hosting more tournaments. We're going to be hosting more people. North 20, Omni, these are locations that are destinations that we want to support as a city council. So my vote would also be that way, to motion to approve.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution approving an amendment to an existing conditional use permit for North 20 Brewing located at 12266 Bacardi Avenue to extend the hours of operation and to allow for outdoor live music and food trucks on site.
Can we speak?
Think about that. First, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay. I think how best to do this. I'm going to ask for a motion to suspend the rules to allow for comment. Typically, all the comments are done at the public hearing at the commission level. Has been stated, I think most, if not all of us, have looked and seen all that. But I'll entertain the request if there's a motion to suspend the rules.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. All right, we'll allow public comment. Again, I'll keep it no longer than, we'll say like 20 minutes, so please come forward.
3 minutes each.
20 minutes, no longer than, state your name, address, in 3
Okay,
minutes.
my name is Mike McMenamy, and we sold the property for the park to the city. This is really a surprise. I didn't see it as an agenda item. We didn't know what was going to be discussed. The planning commission voted all these proposals down. So this is really a shock. It's like a snow job, really. They kind of put their nose under the tent, and now instead of they're pushing the tent over. The public has not had input to you people. We did have it to the planning committee. It was a 2.5-hour meeting. The original proposal for the brewery, due to COVID, was a Zoom meeting. I believe there was something like 30 to 40 people had their input. There was one that approved this. The neighbors do not want it here. At the planning committee meeting we just had, the people on 3 sides were there speaking against it. I would accuse you people of doing a snow job. You don't have these people coming back here, giving the input. I don't think this is really fair. I'm very disappointed, very disappointed. You're moving forward without input from those that are really involved. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for hearing our comments. I'm Debbie Rupie. I live at 12,050 Bacardi Avenue, so just on the other side of the brewery. The brewery has created a lot of havoc in our neighborhood. It's created a lot of noise. Every time it's nice outside, they're outside, they're hooting and hollering, they're having a good time, they're throwing bean bags. You can hear the bean bags. I can hear it in my backyard when I'm sitting on my deck. You can hear it just hitting the wood. They've had sledding. They've broken a lot of the original conditional use permit. So, we heard at the city commission meeting that they technically are only supposed to have 23 people sitting outside. And that's maybe something you guys can clarify. But Dave said at the last meeting that, yes, there's seating for well over 100. That's not to mention, that's 100 seating. That's not to mention all the people that are out there. There's people riding bikes. There's tons of kids outside running around. There's dogs. There's a lot of noise. So by adding the extended hours, I don't think that is right, because you've got a lot of kids on that road. You've got a lot of traffic on that road, a lot of foot traffic. You've got kids playing in the summer. You've got people walking their dogs. You've got people riding their horses. It's a narrow road. It's a dirt road. It's 50 miles an hour. There's no street lights. You've got 120th to the north. That is very, very curvy. In fact, when you drive on that Egan Road, you almost have to stop because there's people on both sides. There's no sidewalk. It's a paved road, but there's also a hill. You got to be careful who's coming over. When you go around those curves, you never know if you're going to hit somebody. So that's another issue. And then to the south of the brewery, you've got 2 ponds on both sides. It's a very narrow road. We see people in the ditch all the time. And then the other thing, like I said, is the noise. I don't think that should, I don't think that they should be allowed to have the food trucks or the live bands. How would you like in your backyard to have a grad party every single night going on? Because that's what we're experiencing. Every time it's nice outside, that's what we're experiencing. We just don't feel, honestly, that it's fair. A lot of our neighbors did not know about the meeting tonight. I had reached out to the commission. I reached out to somebody from the city of Rosemount to ask them what was on the agenda. Never heard back from them. We had to keep searching, and that's why there's not as many of us here tonight, because people did not know that this was on the agenda. So anyways, if I were to pick, I would not allow this. The city commission, they actually said, the city planning, they said that they didn't recommend this. They also were going to go for the longer hours. They were voting no on the food trucks, and they were voting no, as you guys might have seen already, on the live outdoor music. So, by adding the longer hours, now you have to deal with people drinking. Kids that are playing in the summertime. The house across the street has 4 small children. You've got kids outside playing, and now you've got a bunch of people who've been drinking alcohol, driving on that dirt road earlier in the day. Before, or currently, you know that the brewery opens at 4 o'clock. So you can, okay, I can go there before everybody starts drinking. Now you got to worry because they're going to open at 11:30 every day, and then they're going to stay open later at night. So I don't know how this helps people, and I don't know how it helps the wildlife with the nature preserve being right next door. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Fred Rupi. I live at 12,050 Bacardi Avenue. I purchased the property in 2012, and I'm actually a property management company also, and I have other companies. I own several commercial and residential properties in Dakota County, so I understand a little bit of the laws. I lived there for my retirement, and I bought it in 2012, built a new home on it, a lot of improvements. I want to live there on my retirement. And I have never seen Dave come over and say, hey, Fred, how's it going? He acts like he's talking to the neighbors. None of the Smith boys have come over and asked. They know from day one that I didn't want this business to be there because I knew the noise would be an issue. We're in residential rural. That's a quiet neighborhood. With the meadows there, it echoes. It echoes it. From my property, I can easily hear it. If I leave my windows open at night, I can hear it every nice night. I want to enjoy Minnesota for the 6 months that I'm here at that point. And I'm here in the summertime. I want to be here. I enjoy the property very much. I wouldn't have invested in it if I didn't, just like you did, in that end of it. And I know that they want to run a business. I run businesses, so I understand it. It's about profit. It's a commercial thing, and it's about getting communities together. I do a lot for Make-A-Wish, different events and all that stuff all the time. I have companies like that. All I'm saying to you is I care about the community more than I would say the Smiths, because they're next to a wildlife preserve. That, if you think, those adjustments, you're talking about inner city, and I understand, I respect you too, the planning commission, planning people, but when you say it's agriculture, it's residential agriculture. I'm living there. It isn't like I got a farm right there. In the pictures that she showed, she didn't show the neighbor's house right across the street. And if you listen to the tape, she was almost crying when she came up here to speak about her 4 children, thinking that the cars are going by. We asked the planning commission to lower the speed to 30 miles an hour. Dave didn't even say anything about it. I'd like the speed on the road to go down to 30 miles an hour, at least in that area. These cars are going 50, 60 miles an hour frequently on that road, whether they're going through or going to the brewery. They're going fast on that. I like to walk my dogs on the side, and I'm trying to get there before it opens or after it. I can't, but I'm just saying that's another thing, is the safety on that road. Please consider that when you're extending these hours and there's more cars. You should tell your patrons, you can see out the door, if there's cars on the street, you could tell them, hey, we need to park inside a lot. And I understand you took your personal property and used that as an extra parking, which is kind of, leasing it out. I get it at that point of it. It's one of those ways of getting around. But I'm just saying to you is, can you take a look at the neighbors too? I mean, I'm a person too, just like you guys. How would you like to have, I was thinking when you first had the conditional approval, there was 23 chairs out there. That's all that was going to be out there. That's manageable. But when you put 100 out there, that really amplifies everything. That's definitely a problem. So they're not following the conditional use permit, because that's what the planning commission told me that night. There should be only 23 there. And Dave told me he had 100. So that's a problem. How many people are in that brewery? There's a limitation from the fire marshal. I don't know what that is, but I'm sure they've got it packed in there quite a few people. That needs to be figured out. You can't have 100, 200 people. They said 87 should be in there. And maybe that's what it should be. But I'm just saying, when they have the big crowds, when it's nice out, this spring especially, even in the fall, it's loud. It's loud around the neighborhood, and I think you should think about that before you're giving them additional time, and you're saying music. Everybody's got to applaud after somebody plays a song. I'm going to hear that easily every time. And I like to talk to the police chief. What's fair to call you? Should I call him every time? Because that's what they said at the planning commission, is when I can hear the music or when I can hear the noise at my house, I'm 750 feet away. Just think what Ina has to deal with. She's closer. And the preserve, all those animals in there, you don't think they hear it? They're closer than I am, but I'm 750 feet away. So I'm asking them, can you put a buffer? I asked them, can they put a buffer in between there? And when you first had it, this was in 2000, they said, yeah, they look at that. They were supposed to put trees in the front that were supposed to be buffers for the lighting for the neighbor across the street. They put 1.5 foot trees in there. They're supposed to be at least 6.5, you said, 6 feet tall. They could put a berm and put those trees up. They need to do those things before you're going to give them additional things. I think just giving them because they're a good neighbor, to be honest with you, if you asked every neighbor that lives in that area if it's helped them, they would say no. They would say no. And that's the truth about it. But none of them get really, like you say, they weren't aware of all this stuff. It's kind of like last minute things. And we really want people to understand you need to help everybody in the community. And I get it. Some people like breweries to go to, that's their interest, and some people like outdoors and running and all that stuff. I love all that, and it's nice when you can do it safely. And I don't mind the brewery being there, but please contain your noise to your property. Don't echo it out into mine. I never asked for that, and I wouldn't do it to you either. Maybe I should put music up on a high scale. I've got a lot of systems that I can play louder than, that they can hear just as loud as theirs, the same sound. It's not fair. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to them, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to, two wrongs don't make a right. Please take the time out and do a study on the noise. I said the road too. It's not safe right now with that traffic. It's a dirt road. People are coming from different areas that aren't familiar driving on a dirt road. And then when they excavate it, that's so dusty. My house gets double the dust or triple the dust that it had before. And I know the engineers, I talked to them about put some sodium chloride on it and stuff like that, but it's definitely increased. So all I'm asking for you is, if you want to increase the hours another 5 hours a day, that's not going to help us. That's not going to help us. Please put that sound barrier in between there, whether you've got to put berms with trees on it, you've got to put, like the Minnesota Zoo has, the plastic plexiglass up. Keep it contained to your property. When you start coming on my property, that's not fair to me. I lived there before you even started building this. I get the gun club is over there, that's grandfathered in, but you're not, you have a conditional use permit. That means that you have to follow those and keep the noise off my property. I'm 750 feet away, and if I can hear it, I don't want to hear it when I'm trying to relax. I need time to unwind. Just think, when you go home after you come from the bar, you don't want to hear a bunch of people there. What do you think I'm doing? I come home to relax, not listen to a bunch of people. So I'm not trying to complain. I'm just trying to tell you my case is, it's not only me. It's my neighbors next to me. That's all. And overall, they're good people. They're good people, and I'm not saying they are, but please consider our thoughts from you just saying, let's go ahead and extend their hours. Can we put the barriers up, or figure out a way that the noise stays off my property without me being the jerk about it to say, hey, there's a problem. But, the noise is definitely upsetting to my family, and the neighbors around me. It gets loud at times, especially when they get the bigger crowds. If there's the off days, it's not so bad. It's just when they put those bigger crowds and they fill up the lots. And they know it. You can tell by your sales, you can tell when your bigger days are. You come over to my house, and I'll be glad to show you, and you can listen to the music, and you can hear people's voices. Just like, hey, Ken, how you doing? I mean, you can hear it, that echoing. It amplifies. It really does. And I don't think it's fair to say, keep giving them what they want, and that's why I stood out and said, can you listen to us at least? And I know you probably already have a decision, but please consider, I'm a taxpayer just like they are, and I do a lot for the community and stuff like that, and I want to continue doing more instead of thinking, and I want to work with them, but please let them contain it and get the safety of the road too if you can, and the noise. Those are the two things, because somebody is going to get hurt on that road eventually, and it is a problem. So thank you.
Thank you.
And appreciate it.
Is there anyone else?
Hello, my name's Ben Burdick. I live at 14024 Belmont Trail in Rosemount, Minnesota. My family and I have had the privilege of living here in the city for over 16 years. Obviously, I'm wearing a North 20 shirt, so you know where I lean on this issue. I empathize with you guys. I agree, actually, with the driving's too fast. I go to North 20 quite often, 4 or 5 times a week. I have to say, you can look at me and I'm probably like, oh, he's a hunter, he's a sportsman. I'm nothing like that, but I like my beer. So I was very excited to hear that North 20 was coming here, that we were first gonna have a brewery finally. Because most of the times if I wanna have some craft beer, I go to Burnsville, I go to Lakeville, I go to, someplace outside of here. And so when I heard it, I was so excited, but I will be honest, I was nervous. I was kind of nervous in the aspect of like, is the beer gonna taste good? Is it gonna be a snobby Yankee place? Because there are places, go to St. Paul and there's a couple of them I can call out for you. But no, man, it was amazing when I got there. The first thing that kind of shocked me, the whole thing was all the faces looked, similar. They were behind the bar and serving people, and then it comes to find out it's a family. This is a family business. I mean, the mom and dad are behind the bar serving, little kids are running around, and that's what I loved about North 20. I still love about it. My wife and I, my wife and I, our kids are older, so when we go to North 20, it's always, we get to see these little kids that are playing games, they're enjoying the outdoors. We heard, and I think that's the beauty of North 20 is the kids playing. I mean, it's the one place I've been. Head over to like Lakeville, you're not gonna see that. So I just think that's a magical thing about North 20 in that aspect. I've heard a number of customers that come in, I mean, they come in from all over the state to come visit our brewery. You know, North 20 is the only one that has Rosemount on it. I went to Beer Dabbler, and it was so great. Everybody's like, where's the Rosemount Brewery? It's here, North 20. There was another brewery there, but they weren't Rosemount. And I'm very proud of that and the fact, you know, when we drink this beer, it comes from Rosemount water. I mean, there's all these neat things that this does. Yes, I agree with my neighbors. They're not, you know, you guys live 15-minute walk from your house, but I agree with them. Yeah, we should probably slow that gravel road down. I've seen it, been there quite a bit. You know, I think those are excellent suggestions. Same time, I totally approve, broaden the hours for this. Allow us to have some live music. You know, I know Dave is always concerned about the noise. You mentioned a little bit earlier about the karaoke. We also tried some music trivia, and that was too loud. We turned that off as well. And so it's been more a speaking thing. And so I know even Dave spoke in the Planning Commission about, you know, it'd be just softer music, because he does want people to talk. Dave taught my wife and I how to play cribbage. I mean, so it's like, it's not like this guy understands what community and family is. So I encourage you, yes, vote yes. Whatever else you can do, because I hear you. I hear you guys with the speed in that, and I'm surprised it's not 20 or 30 miles per hour down on that gravel road. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, with that, we've reached the allocated time that council allowed. With that, are there any questions or comments for staff based on any comments?
Well, I have a couple of questions and requests, if you will. Mr. Logan or you give Mr. Logan, Mr. Martin. It's all good. Maybe give an overview of the process, like Planning Commission is the public hearing and how they're posted, and it's a recommendation to us, and how all those agendas are posted. None of this was a secret. Maybe give a little bit of process of that. And then I do think, and I don't know what the formal process is, I'm looking for some Public Works people in the audience, Brian. But, you know, the speed is concerning. When I heard it on the Planning Commission recording, I was shocked it was 50 miles per hour. I go down that road all the time. My kids go to Red Pine. I couldn't believe it was 50. So what would that look like if we needed to adjust it? I know it's just not as simple as, hey, let's just make it 30, but like, what does that process look like would be really helpful. And then my last question or comment would be, people had mentioned a limited number of people on the outdoor seating area, and I was just reviewing the different conditions that we approved when we originally approved North 20, and I don't see it here. Was that somewhere else, or am I missing something? That's a lot, but those are my three.
The 23 that was referenced.
Yeah.
I can take a start at that, Councilmember Fresky, Mayor Weisenfeld. Thank you for the questions, and then Julia can assist, and I think Chief Dahlstrom Brian can assist as well. First of all, I think it's critical to note, you know, these folks and a number of others were at the Planning Commission meeting. The way the City Council, or the way the City of Rosemount is set up from a statutory standpoint is our public hearings are held at the Planning Commission level. For a variety of reasons. That happens in a lot of cities across the metro. That's not an abnormal thing for the City of Rosemount. So that is the typical time for public to speak. That is when public is noticed, et cetera. It's critical to note, and I think it's very inaccurate to act as though this meeting was a surprise. Chair Kenninger does a great job, and she said it numerous times at that meeting that May 16th is when the City Council is acting. Come back on May 16th. It was said a number of times, and if folks were to watch the video again, I think they would see that Chair Kenninger announced May 16th a number of times. So want to level set there that there's nothing surprising here. This is also not an item that needs to be noticed to the community. This is on the agendas. You know, there's nothing missed there in terms of statutory step, but announced very, very freely at the Planning Commission meeting. Julia, I can let you chat about the kind of the head count that's supposed to be out on the patio. And then I think we've also got a staff level speed study that was done over the last couple of weeks. we can share out some detail on the speed study. You're right, Councilmember Fresky, it would take a detailed speed analysis to be done to consider changing the speed. The speed study will prove out that the majority of folks are not traveling even the speed limit. They're below the speed limit, but I'll let Julia speak to that. And then if there is an interest, I think staff would be open to discussing a recommendation from the council to potentially further limit parking on Bacardi, even for homeowners, you know, that, yes, it's the Schmitz property, the North 20 property says no parking on Bacardi. We acknowledge that it happens, not gonna pretend that it doesn't. So if you'd like an additional layer of protection against that, I think we'd be open to considering a one-side only parking on Bacardi for all players involved, because we do agree that it's a narrow road and safety is of utmost priority. But Julia, do you want to hit on patio and speed study?
Yeah, so the 23 for the patio was identified in the original 2020 report. I know it wasn't identified in the conditional use permit itself, but in the original report, the 23 was stated for outdoor seating. And then also in regards to the speed study, I know our city engineer can speak to it maybe a little more as well, but in front of you, last week they had done a speed study along Bacardi. As you can see, the location and as well as the average speed that they're seeing at 131st Street, 128th, 126th, and then 120th. And do also want to speak on the police department did say that Bacardi is a 55-mile-per-hour road currently. And they are identifying with this information here to adjust those speeds. But again, a little more in-depth report will be done. This is just the preliminary data that they received from that initial study, so.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So what regarding the speed limit then, so what is the next step then? So you've done this study, who do you guys need to present this to get the formal, to your point, to get the formal process to really look at limiting and reducing the speed limit, actually reducing it from 55 down to something else? What is that process?
So we had one of our consultants actually do the speed study. The map that you see there, that's the 4 locations where they had speed counters there, so they actually counted the traffic as well. Looking at that, so the 85th percentile, that's generally what speed limits are set at. So on the southern end, as you'll notice there, that's 45 miles an hour. So what that means is 85% of the cars that are traveling are either 45 miles an hour or less.
To my neighbor.
You know, I did look at some of the max speeds that were on each of those 4 counters. The highest one I saw was 63. And again, you always have those outliers. So, so generally we set the speed limits at 85. I did talk to Mr. Egger earlier today, and so we're in the process right now. We're going to start. You know, that area will need to be signed as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know that. Yeah.
Just to comment, so you guys have a reference point. If you look at Minnesota statute 169.14, subdivision 5H, that's where it talks about speed limits on city streets. It said, cities may establish speed limits for city streets under the city's jurisdiction other than the limits provided in subdivision 2. You can read subdivision 2, which will explain why this road is a 55-mile-an-hour road. And it allows a city that uses the authority under the subdivision must develop procedures to set speed limits based on the city's safety, engineering, and traffic analysis. At a minimum, the safety, engineering, and traffic analysis must consider national urban speed limit guidance and studies local traffic crashes and methods to effectively communicate the change to the public. So there is, we do have that ability to do that analysis as Brian stated, so I just wanted to.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Because when you look at the locations here, Bacardi and 131st, that's actually still on the paved road before you hit the gravel. Would you, as in your expertise for both of you, would the speed limit be different if it's a paved road versus a gravel road?
Well, I did talk to our consultant who's, you know, he's done a lot of speed studies on these kind of things, and you know, you can see. So the 2 things that we look at really are going to be the average speed and then that 85th percentile speed. So you can see that, you know, the average speed along there, although not signed, the people who drive there are driving under that 55 miles an hour. You know, looking at that, I think it's probably appropriate that it's signed at 45. You know, it is a pretty wide road. I'll use Bon Air Path as a reference. And so east of Bacardi, at that point, Bon Air is actually signed at 50 miles an hour. Again, you know, looking at that, I would say that one could almost be 55. It's pretty wide. You know, there's plenty of room out there, but it's signed at 50. And so the same thing here. This is what the traveling public generally drives, is that 45 miles an hour or less. And so that's what we would look to change there. The pavement is going to make a difference. People are they feel more comfortable driving faster on a paved road. So,
Well, now we're going to be paving up to the two on the south end. It's going to be paved all the way up.
It'll be
after
paved
after this fall.
just past that intersection there. So not the lowest one, but the next one up, it'll be paved a few hundred feet past that. So, you know, we would probably look to change, after paving, we'd probably change the speed limit on the gravel road as well. It's a little uncommon to sign a gravel road like Chief Dahlstrom said. You know, generally people just don't drive. They don't drive 55 on gravel roads, even though statutorily that's what they're allowed to do. So, but yeah, so we're already, like I said, I've talked to Mr. Ager. We're already moving forward to try to adjust and install speed limit or speed signs on there. So,
What is the timeline on that?
it's probably a couple weeks. You know, the big thing is really just going to be that north end. You know, for the paving and how much further the project brings that pavement further north. So, because that's where the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit would likely be installed at end of pavement.
Okay. Thanks. I just want to go back to the 23 people on the patio. It wasn't listed in the conditional use permit, but what document is that in?
You can speak on it.
Where did that 23 people come from?
Yeah, Councilmember Essler, that was from the original site plan review, so it really was separate from the actual conditional use permit. And it was just the number of seats that they had shown on their site plan and what staff used to identify the required amount of parking. So what staff's been doing is working with the applicant to identify the size of their overflow area to see how many seats they really can have. You know, because since they opened, I think they thought they had more space out there, so let's throw some more tables out. But when you do that, you have parking issues.
So there's nothing restricting them right now?
There's
to
no
the
restriction
23?
on the actual number of seats other than they need to provide enough parking.
Parking, okay. So as long as they resolve the parking, and that matches the numbers of seats
Right.
available, both inside and outside,
Yep.
then it,
And so it's a gravel lot, and so we'll work with them on finding out what the actual dimensions are that they feel comfortable doing.
Yep.
And then C, using the city standards for what a parking stall's dimensions are, how many cars could fit there. And then from then, we can say, well, okay, you have room for, I don't know, 60 seats or whatever. I don't know the answer, but, so we're working with them now, and we've been starting that conversation since the planning commission meeting. Also, since one of the neighbors brought up the landscaping that is installed is shorter than what the city requires for, planting with a landscape plan. So we're working with them to make sure that they do get those trees that are at a minimum height that the city code requires out there on the site.
is the applicant committed to doing that?
Well, this,
Yeah, okay.
and the city does have a landscaping surety, so if they don't, we can go in and do it.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, we got cash from
That
them.
solves it. Yep, okay.
Anthony, could I ask, just, do we, when you're done with your review of parking and how parking compares to seats, do we codify that as a condition? Is that a condition that might be necessary, that we get closer to honing in on the actual seat count? Or that's done at a staff level?
Yeah, it's not really something that would come back through the conditional use permit, since it wasn't a condition that you can only have X number of seats. It was more, the city code requires a certain level of parking for the number of seats.
Right.
And if you can't provide the parking, you can't have those seats.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Any other questions, comments? Thanks, Aaron. All right. We have a motion on the floor. I didn't hear anything for a need for any amendments, unless anyone was proposing any. All right, so motion on the floor is to adopt the resolution approving the amendment to an existing conditional use permit for North 20 Brewing, and to extend the hours of operation and to allow outdoor live music and food trucks on site. Motion was by Fresky.
By Essler.
Essler, and second by Fresky. All right. Any other discussion or comments? Roll, please.
Klempel,
Aye.
Weisenthal,
Aye.
Tyson,
Aye.
Fresky,
Aye.
Essler.
Aye.
That passes 5-0 on 9D. Just in a closing comment, to those, we didn't hear tonight what you had stated. Recognize that, again, we all listened to the public hearing, heard all that, so a lot of the stuff wasn't necessarily new, so we're taking action based on our feelings on this, I guess. All right, that concludes.
Excuse me, I guess I got one question. So every time we hear noise, should we just keep calling the police department?
If you believe that the noise is excessive, then you can call 911, yes.
Thank you.
All right, that completes 9D. We'll move on to 9E, receiving bids and award contract package number 2 with Public Works. Mr.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I can take that.
Mr. Martin.
Take that item. Yes, appreciate that. Excited to be here tonight to award bid package number 2 for the Public Works Police Department campus. Bids were opened on May 4th. We got over 120 bids across 23 work scopes that you are considering authorizing tonight. So we're really confident that we've received fair pricing below. The bid package number 2 is within the anticipated budget. As expected. So what you see in the memo and then in the attached recommendation letter from Kraus Anderson to authorize and accept bid package number 2 shows both the base level estimates and the alternates. So just want to clarify that and call that out. There are 7 work scopes that are not yet included in your bid package authorization tonight. Those 7 scopes have been identified as critical path projects or work scopes for the project, and so they will be bid with a best value bidding method, whereby city staff, the project team, has been reviewing, in partnership with our construction manager, reviewing past experience. We've been reviewing work references, job references, and then also hosting in-person interviews. And so, for example, first set of interviews were held today. We brought in 4 bidders, for the electrical package, and then we will look at the summary of the points received on throughout the process. So price is a critical component of that, as is ability to complete the project. And so with Kraus Anderson, they've recommended a few projects that, again, are parts of the project work scopes that would be of critical importance to really exceed on and complete in a really high quality manner. And so those are being done with the best value method. So we'll be back with you at a subsequent city council meeting to approve those 7. But we've got a list in front of you tonight, a total of $9.719 million in bids across those work scopes for bid package number 2 that we are recommending that the city council authorize tonight to keep us on track for a June groundbreaking on this project. So happy to stand for any questions that the city council may have. Hopefully the data presented is helpful and can certainly respond if there are things that step out. So with that, we can turn it back to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Open to council. Any questions, comments? All right, done. Seeing none, hearing none.
Yeah, as of now, the project, like I said, will come back. We have the ability to include the alternates, and so I just wanted to call that out, that, right now what you're seeing in front of you includes the alternates, and so those were things like the salt storage shed, the cold storage, Really excited that we can include those items in the project with some assumptions on potentially the best value bidding and how that could shake out. We are about, give or take $2 to $3 million under the cumulative budget, including the bid alternates. So again, that number is going to ebb and flow as we make those critical decisions on best value bidding. But wanted to clarify that we're really pleased that right now it's looking as if the project will include the bid alternates. So that's an exciting piece that not only makes the project a bit more whole, but also gives us some of the opportunities to do the expansion remodel on the Central Park project that we're really excited to pursue also. So sorry for chiming in at the last minute there, but I wanted to include that as well.
Councilman Essler.
Yep, so I've just got a question, consistent with my earlier, conversation around comparing to the estimate.
Yep.
Am I missing it, or is there a comparison to our internal budget somewhere, summary? Because now we've covered both phase 1 and 2 of all the scopes.
Yep.
So now we would have everything lined up, our internal estimate versus what all the scopes came in at. Do we have that comparison?
I have a large document that staff's been using, but again, it's not done because of those 7 large items that are not yet bid. So we've got status of bid package number 2 and where we're at with bid package number 2, and that's kind of what you're seeing as a side to side here, but not ready to talk about a cumulative project status
Or
yet.
do we even have a comparison side by side with the estimate?
You have that on the first page of the council memo.
Okay, did I miss that? Apparently I did.
It's got base estimate, low bid.
It's got the base estimate and low bid.
Right, and so you'll see a lot of line items there that show that, it would make you seem as though it's over a base estimate, but again, the base estimate doesn't include alternates. The low bid includes the alternates, and so those numbers are showing the additional, where applicable, the alternates that come into play.
The estimate isn't actually total, so that's why.
Yeah, we don't have a total, and it's not an it wouldn't be apples to apples, because the metal building and the salt building are alternates. And I'm just wondering, is there a quick way we can do, or if you've got something there, would tabulate that?
I can't do it on camera here tonight, but you can certainly.
How about our finance director? Can we do that quickly in your head?
No.
Again, I'm just being consistent with the conversation earlier. Going forward, just know that I'm always going to be interested in looking at that side by side. I want to be able to see. What are we signing up for? How does it compare to our estimate? Whatever scopes we're signing up for. It would be really helpful.
But I'm looking at Mr. Martin and saying that we are, because you have some knowledge, because you're saying that we're within at least $2 million.
Right, including, the budget that I have is a cumulative budget that, again, is making, assumptions on who we could go with the best value process, that also shows us spending every penny of contingency dollars and still has us $3 million under budget. So, but acknowledge if that's not good enough for you, and you can certainly vote the way you'd wish.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Would anyone like to move the recommended motion?
I'll move the motion to adopt the resolution receiving bids and awarding contracts for bid package number 2, including alternative bid items and on the Public Works and Police Campus project.
I'll second.
Motion by Tyson, second by Fresky. Any other discussion? Roll, please.
Weisenthal.
Aye.
Tyson.
Aye.
Fresky.
Aye.
Essler.
Sorry, nay.
Klempel.
Aye.
Motion passes 419E. That completes and receives those bids. Is accepted. Moving on. Announcements, city staff updates, 10A. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, members of the council. A couple items tonight. First of all, thanks for adopting the resolution acknowledging Public Works Week next week. Really, those things are really important to staff, and I want to thank Director Egger. He's intending to do a couple of really nice displays for the team, cooking a couple meals, a breakfast and a lunch for the team, and so it's just really critical for us to do those kinds of things. Also, as Councilmember Tyson mentioned, appreciate the support to host the Lunch and Learn that we had last week. Really appreciated the support to not only, you know, allocate those funds for those really critical things, but then really to show staff how critical their service is and acknowledge their service. And the week we're in the middle of right now, of course, is National Police Week. Yesterday was Peace Officer Day. I know a number of our team, Chief Dahlstrom included, attended the wreath laying ceremony up in St. Paul. It's been a really challenging time, of course, in law enforcement for the last couple of months with some really tragic murders of police officers. And so our heart breaks for the cities and counties that are dealing with that, and appreciate your support for those types of things, and for Chief to go up there and do that. It hits close to home when it happens in law enforcement. So just want to thank you for the work you've done to support us in the month of May. Another thing that's critical that happened tonight that didn't get called out on the consent agenda is council supporting the expansion of the fire relief package. And so folks that maybe look at agendas and don't always understand what that is, that's the retirement benefit that our firefighters get. And so our firefighters really work for servant wages. They're really public servants by very, very definition. And one of the things that we can do to entice them to serve is provide them with a retirement benefit as they're fully vested with the department after 10 or 20 years. And council just expanded the amount that a firefighter does receive after serving for 20 or 10 years being partially vested. And again, want to appreciate your support for that. That really is critical for both retaining and then recruiting firefighters. And so wanted to call out a couple of those items tonight. And I believe, Mayor, that's all that I had on my list. So thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from council? Any of their collateral meetings, duties to share? Thank you. Upcoming community calendar. We have the spring cleanup and shredding event happening at DCTC's East Lot here, May 20th, this Saturday, starting at 8 o'clock, running from 8 to 12. Head south on 151st Street to enter the event. More details are on our website, I believe. Park and Rec meeting is May 22nd, 7 to 8 p.m. Crash Course Organics, May 23rd, 7 to 8 p.m. Again, more details are online. Where is that actually? It doesn't say in here, so I'm curious as to location-wise. Is that here at City Hall?
I'm sorry, Mayor, I'm not certain offhand. I apologize.
Keep looking at that as I'm looking through the Youth
Steeple
Commission.
Center, room 202.
Thank you. Steeple Center, 202. The Youth Commission's regular meeting will be on May 24th. Starting at 3 p.m. at Lions Park. This will be a tree planting event. And then at 3:45, they'll be meeting at the Steeple Center, room 200, for their regular meeting. Memorial Day event, calling out on May 29th from 11 to 11:30 at Central Park. And this is honoring those who have given their life to the service. These are people from Rosemount over the years. They are noted on the monument and will be recognized for that. I ask residents, please come out for that day, for that event, and show your, I guess, patriotism and then the memorial service that goes with that. City Council work session, June 6th, 5 to 6 p.m., and are followed by our City Council meeting at 7 to 8 p.m. on the same location. So is there any other business to come before council? Seeing none, I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and second to adjourn the meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.